At the end of January, our architecture studio had the opportunity to go to Miami for a site visit, which was to be the site for our project this semester. We flew from Tweed Airport through Avelo in the wee early hours. This was 5 or 6 a.m. and we flew to Fort Lauderdale. On the way there, we actually had no idea what our project for this semester would be, which is basically our senior thesis. And on this trip, we found out that we would be designing a spirit garden, or a cemetery, around Biscayne Bay. We took a shuttle to the car rental place, and this is what the car rental place looked like. Okay.
What is this room? I'm so perplexed.
We ended up renting 3 pretty large cars for everyone in our studio, and our TAs are driving us. Our first stop was to our hostel called The Generator, and it's a 2-minute walk from the Miami Beach boardwalk, and it was in an area that was surrounded by quite a lot of different hotels and bars. The lobby was super cool, and they had a restaurant as well, and this is also part of the lobby further in, and you could see the pool outside. And they had a nice courtyard area as well as a heated pool with a lot of seating. Hi. Okay, initial impressions?
Interesting lighting. Placement, distance from lobby.
Yeah.
It's a little dark, a little moist.
Yeah, the air quality is a little damp.
Has the kind of dampness to it, a little low.
Yeah.
And the floors are tile.
Wasn't expecting it to be underground a little.
Yeah. But it's pretty nice for a hostel.
But very nice for a hostel.
Yeah.
Interesting decor choice.
Oh yeah. Exotic dancers.
Yeah. There's like there's like bars on the windows. The toilet looks nice, decent. Decent bathroom.
After we dropped off our stuff at the hostel, we went to ride a boat around Biscayne Bay. Hi. We went through various parts of Biscayne Bay, and one of the people who worked on the boat was telling us that in Biscayne Bay is an island called Fisher's Island, and it's a completely self-sufficient island that houses mostly millionaires, and the homeowners association fee for the first year is $250,000, and you can only get there by either boat or helicopter. In general, Miami is a place of interest because it's projected to be one of the first cities to be impacted by flooding due to climate change, and there's also such a thing called spoil islands, where they'll dredge up the bay almost once a year and basically rebuild the coastline with that sand. Sometimes that residual sand is also used to reconstruct new islands, and so there's a bunch of islands that are completely man-made in Biscayne Bay. We also saw the CMA CGM container ship, and we saw the cranes in action moving the container ships down. And it was a very fascinating process. It's not something that if you live in the middle of a city that you might see every day. So it was very interesting to witness this kind of structure that really dominates a lot of our commercial experience of the world, but we don't see directly. In our boat ride, we also stopped by Virginia Key, which has the Miami Marine Stadium, and it's the first stadium that was built for powerboat racing in the US. And it's also featured in Elvis Presley movie, and there's a lot of really valuable history tied to this building, which is basically just a giant concrete cantilever. Over the years, it's also been covered in graffiti, and that graffiti has become an art hub of its own. We also had the chance to jump in and feel the water. For my Californian taste, it was a little cold, but it was still very, very fun. As the sun started setting, we headed back to the original dock, and that basically concluded the first day. For dinner, we were allowed to go wherever we wanted, and we chose to go to Chef Creole Seasoned Kitchen. We got a whole fried fish, 2 different kinds of beans and rice, 2 different kinds of plantains. It was really good. And they also had a cat wandering outside. The next day, we drove to the Marine Stadium to get an introduction about the space from a professor from the University of Miami. This professor told us that the Marine Stadium was designed by architect Eladio Candela, and preservation efforts began in 2008, and he presented this building or stadium at the Modernism at Risk Symposium. He also explained that the roof of the stadium is a hyperbolic parabola, and this means that the curved surface is actually made of completely flat surfaces, and going through how because this was cast as concrete, they needed to make a formwork out of wood. And in order to make a curve out of wood, they decided to implement this idea of the hyperbolic parabola. After seeing the Marine Stadium, we went to the Haiti Cultural Center to look at an installation. The exhibition was called A Call to the Ancestors, and it was curated by Carl-Philippe Juste. The exhibit focused on memory, remembering lost loved ones, but also highlighted the fact that slavery was a very big part of Miami, even though Miami tries to brand itself now as this cultural hub for young people. It's still marred by its slavery past. There were also photographs about Lincoln Memorial Park, which is a black cemetery in Miami, which was forgotten for a very long time. Carl-Philippe Juste was also able to introduce this corner of the exhibition called the Parlor, which he invites people to call on the phone to send a message to their loved ones. And he said he's intending to use these recordings in some sort of art, but he doesn't know yet. But that was a really interesting way of remembering and providing a space for introspection. After the Haiti Cultural Complex, we stopped for a quick lunch at Dogi's Arepa Bar. After lunch, we went to Visaya Museum and Gardens, which is a 1916 waterfront estate home, and it is basically kind of frozen in time and is now a historical monument, and the parking lot was full of these ficus trees, which are trees that kind of take advantage of each other's growth and grow on top of each other, and they're beautiful and a little scary. If you've ever been to the Getty Museum, like the Roman Getty Villa in LA, had a very similar vibe, except for the fact that this isn't a reconstruction of a past life. Somebody actually lived like this. And so in order to get there, we had to walk through almost a forest filled with trees and various statues. Then we get to this grand walkway that welcomes you, and you see this giant glistening pavilion in the distance. This is the main pavilion where we entered, and this place has apparently 32 decorated rooms and 10 acres of formal gardens. It had this beautiful inner courtyard, and this place also reminded me of the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum if you've ever been there in Boston. After you exit the main pavilion, there's this barge in the middle of the estate, and there's these smaller little follies or kind of pavilions with no purpose extending on the left and right sides of this barge. And apparently there are dinner parties held on this, and I could totally imagine a wedding being held here. I think someone was actually getting married here on this day, or at least taking photos, and understood it's such a beautiful location. Hi Emmett.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Amazing.
Amazing.
This is beautiful.
Yeah, can you believe
come.
this is a single family home?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I had to sell it though. You know?
Okay.
The family got too big, you know.
There was also a weirdly oriental room, and this was a very funny thing to see. I don't know, there's like a man in a top hat on this buff dragon. After Visaya, we went to our professor's apartment because he has a really nice pool at his apartment, and the pool is also about 10 feet away from the ocean. He also prepared snacks for us, which was super sweet, and the strawberries were huge. Where Winnie is standing is basically where he lived, and I just turned 180 degrees and I can see the ocean. For dinner, we went to this Cuban place that our professor recommended called Versailles. I know it's spelled Versailles, but apparently in Miami you have to say Versailles. It was extremely packed, and especially for such a large party, 18 of us, or actually 20 of us including our TAs, it was a lot. But we got seats in the end, and the interior is covered in mirrors, I guess as an homage to Versailles. We got ropa vieja, some sandwich things, lots of other things. I don't remember now, but it was very good. After dinner, we Ubered to a bar, and the Uber driver was playing this soap opera music. Hi, Winnie. We went to this place called Dante's Hi-Fi, and it was pretty chill. I would say if you are a couple, we saw a lot of couples here, but not really for dancing. We ventured a bit further into the Wynwood area, and we ended up at a bar/club outdoor dance thing called Gramps. And I think they were playing exclusively covers, or maybe there's people singing it live. I'm not sure. But it was pretty fun, and by this time it was pretty late. It was maybe 2 a.m. So after this place, I called it a day and I went back with Winnie and Autumn. This trip was super short, so now it's Sunday and we needed to head back to campus. After returning the rental car, we hopped on the shuttle to return to our terminal at the airport.
Upstairs, full?
Jessica Cloud. Guy Mary Morano.
That was terrifying.
It was kind of a bummer to leave behind sunny 70 to 80 degree Miami and head back to rainy 30 to 40 degree New Haven, but I'm so grateful that we had this opportunity to go to Miami as a class, and 10 out of 10 would go again.